All right, couple things before we start. One really important idea is that I am not here to tell you how to do your job at all. I'm not here to act like I have all the answers. I just want to share some research and principles about learning that I think matter, that I think can be effective. I think one of the most important parts of my job is to give you the time and the space to think about these principles and how to use them. The answers of how to apply these principles are already in the room. My job is just to share some ideas and then give you some time to think. So that's sort of the structure of the day. I've been obsessed with learning for about a decade now. And the reason why I'm obsessed with learning is because of, I guess, a big failure that I faced. So a little backstory. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming, a super small town that no one's ever heard of called Lander, Wyoming. And in 4th grade, it was my dream in life to play basketball at Duke. Now, I know some of you just look me up and down like, yeah. That was the goal, that was the dream. From like 4th grade to 12th grade, I chased that with everything I had. Long story short, I was accepted into Duke, probably because they needed someone from Wyoming. And I got out there for my first year, and that year, the basketball team actually had open tryouts for the 2 walk-on spots on the team. 120 people tried out for the 2 spots, and I was lucky enough to make the Final Four. So the 4 of us were on the team for preseason. It was like a month and a half on the Duke basketball team. Got to practice with them, work out with them. Coach K was there, the whole thing. For the month and a half, every day that I walked to practice, I was in tears because I was so happy to literally be living my dream. At the end of preseason, they had to cut 2, keep 2, and I was the last person cut. I tell people it's like Rudy without the happy ending. And I'm not telling you this story because I found the opportunity and grew from that. I did not handle that well at all. I had the chance to be a manager and practice player on the team for a couple years. I enjoyed that, but I don't even think I appreciated it as much as I could have because I was so bitter about falling short. Now, that happened a long time ago, and I can look you in the eye right now and say that was one of the best things to ever happen to me. I didn't handle it well, but it was a very important moment in my life because it planted a seed, and the seed was a question: what could I have done better? And that question is what's fueled the journey. That's why I'm here. That's why I have this website. The whole idea is just to unpack research about how we can become better learners. So what I'm here to do today is just to report on some of the things that I've learned in that journey. To start the conversation on learning, we have to start where everybody starts, and that's by talking about tigers. So, let me tell you about this tiger. This tiger lives in a zoo. So where does it spend all of its time? Inside of a? Nice. Would you agree that this tiger's life is really boring? Yeah, it agrees with you. Would you also agree that this tiger has the easiest life a tiger could have? Yeah. You sit in a box, people take your picture, give you food. You have everything you need 24/7. It doesn't get easier than that. Zoo tigers never really struggle because if we're living in the zoo, we never really face the things that lead to struggle. Those would be problems, challenges, obstacles, change. Are you with me that those 4 things don't really happen in the zoo? Not many problems to solve in your cage. Definitely not much change to deal with. So for the most part, a zoo tiger never really struggles. If that's one end of the tiger spectrum, a tiger living in the zoo, what would the opposite end be? A tiger living where? In the wild. Now, I think we can agree on a few things. One, jungle tiger's life is way more difficult than the zoo tiger's life. Because the jungle tiger's on its own. We have to hunt, we have to find water, we have to protect ourselves, we have to do those things every day. Also, jungle tigers can't pick and choose what they're good at. We can't go out to find food and come up empty-handed and go, hunting's not for me. It's probably not going to work in the jungle. We need to be able to develop all of those skills in order to survive. As far as struggle is concerned, the amount of struggle that a jungle tiger would face compared to a zoo tiger would be off the charts. Because every day, in one way or the other, it faces problems, challenges, obstacles, and change. It might struggle on a daily basis. So we have two very, very different environments here. What would happen if we took a zoo tiger from over here and we put it into the jungle? It's in trouble. And again, it's pretty easy to see why. If we spend our whole life in the zoo, our whole life in the cage, and then we're thrown into the jungle, we don't stand a chance. We don't know how to hunt because we've never had to hunt. We don't know how to protect ourselves because we've never had to do that. Now, there are no guarantees, but I think we could agree that the jungle tiger has a better shot of surviving in the wild than the zoo tiger does. Now, if you think about it, the difference in the two tigers had nothing to do with their tools. Like, both tigers had stripes and sharp teeth. They were both tigers. It wasn't like the jungle tiger had better stripes. The difference between the two tigers wasn't in their wasn't in their tools, it was in their skills. And it was in the environment that led to those skills. The environment that was more difficult, the one that involved some problems and obstacles and challenges, allowed the jungle tiger to do something that the zoo tiger could not. Now, I know some of you might have heard this before, and some of you are already realizing that this is not a story about tigers. This is a story about us. This is a story about you and me. This is a story about the people you lead and work with. This is a story about how people learn. I think I have the coolest job in the world because I get to travel all over the place and do workshops like this, and I love to do that. But I think the coolest part about my job is how much I get to learn and the people I get to learn from. I get to hang out with the people in the trenches, the scientists, the people that have been researching learning for literally decades. And one of the most important principles that come from that research is that no matter who we are, no matter how old we are, no matter what we're trying to learn, we learn the best when we operate at the edge of our abilities and a little out of our comfort zone. Like, that's where we grow the best. That is a principle of learning. The truth about comfort zones, we all have them. They come in all shapes and sizes. All the people you lead and work with, they have comfort zones too. If we spend all of our time in our comfort zone, we can certainly say that it's easy there, that we look good there, that we don't struggle very much there. In other words, our comfort zone is just like what? It's like the cage, it's like the zoo. If we do only the things we're good at, only the things that are easy and comfortable, just like the zoo tiger, we sort of limit our development. A better way of saying this is we're built to learn like jungle tigers, when we get out of our comfort zone and have to solve some problems, when we have to struggle. Here's the cool part. You already know this. Everybody knows this. I've given the jungle tiger talk to kindergarten students before. They sit there and look at it and go, yeah, the jungle tiger approach is better. Which means they understand the underlying message of this, which means so do we. In fact, getting out of your comfort zone is the biggest cliche of all time. Everyone says it. It's like the #1 post on Instagram. Out of our comfort zones, where the magic happens. We've all seen that. So we all understand this idea. The problem isn't that we don't understand the learning process. The problem here is tigers don't have a choice, but we do. Like, a tiger either lives in the zoo, lives in the jungle, that doesn't change. We're in the wild. We're in the jungle. Every day we're presented jungle tiger moments. Problems, challenges, obstacles, change. When we're presented a jungle tiger moment, we get to choose what to do with it. We can choose to learn from it and experience it, or we can choose to hide from it and avoid it. And that's a choice we get to make multiple times a day. More times than not, if we're going to be real, we choose to zoo tiger. And I'm saying we because I do that all the time. So the problem I'm trying to lay out to you is pretty simple. On paper, we understand this idea, yet more times than not, when we're presented the jungle tiger moments, we end up staying in the zoo. The question I want to work our conversation around now is why? Why do you think we end up in the zoo when on paper we all understand this process? While you think about that question, I have a quick video to show you. We have footage of a jungle tiger in the wild.
try. Here it is, next try. I'm sick of doing this, guys. That's it, I found it.
That was it.
I found it.
All right, so three obvious questions. Obvious question number one. Would you say he's leaning into the challenge or avoiding the challenge? Leaning into it. So would you say he's learning something new or doing something he's already good at? Learning something new. Obvious question number three. Would you say that that would be jungle tigering or zoo tigering? He's choosing to jungle tiger, choosing to learn something new, choosing to experience the challenge. What can we learn from a video like that? I asked that to some students in Texas, and one goes, "You should wear a shirt and a helmet." Which is true. Safety first. Now, the reason we love the video isn't because we're here to give you a safety message, or we're not here to show you how to skateboard. That's not a video about skateboarding. That's a video about learning. On the last crash, after crashing 20 or 30 times, he's laying there and we get a visible aha moment. He's laying there and he goes, "I found it." It clicks. You can see it in his face. And that's something that we've all experienced before. That's something that you probably see every day, aha moments. Something that we all know but sometimes we forget is that the aha moment, it can't happen without the crashes. Every single crash, in one way or the other, led him to, "I found it." That's what learning looks like no matter what we're trying to learn. That's exactly how we learn to walk. That's exactly how we learn to ride a bike. It's how we learn to write and sing and dance and do math and shoot a basketball. It doesn't matter what we're trying to learn. The process we move through is always the same. In fact, there's an ironclad rule of learning that says we're always going to be bad first, period. There's no way around this rule. If we're going to learn something new, we're bad at first. We struggle at first, and it's from the struggle that we grow. The truth is, I don't know you. I don't know the things you've been through. But I guarantee everyone in this room has something they want to get better at. It would be fun and easy and convenient if we could just skip the struggle step and get good at stuff. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. We earn our skills. We have to move through the struggle step. We can't land the skateboard without a few crashes. Now, the good news is most of the things we're trying to develop or learn, we don't have to fall on our actual face. But we do have to struggle. We do have to fall. We do have to make mistakes. Every single person in this room has done this hundreds of times. If you're sitting here, you are really, really good at lots of things. We should give ourselves credit for that. You weren't born with those skills, you earned them, and you earned them through practice and struggle and experimentation. We earned our skills through jungle tigering. Jungle tigering is not about aggression, and it's not necessarily about the big leaps out of our comfort zone. It's the small choices we make every day. Jungle tigering to me is any time we choose the right thing and better thing over the easy and more comfortable thing. And that's a choice we've made thousands of times. Jungle tigering is asking a question, it's speaking up if something needs to be said. Jungle tigering is working on a project out of our comfort zone. It's applying for a new role, new position, promotion, new job. We've all done it. It's choosing right and better over easy and comfortable. If we're going to be real though, everyone in this room, we've all zoo tigered a lot as well. Would you agree? Like zoo tigering is when we don't ask the question, we don't speak up, we avoid the project out of our comfort zone, we talk ourselves out of applying for the new role or new position. And we've done that a lot. So the question I want to circle back to is why? Why do you think when we have a choice, especially when it comes to learning, more times than not, we choose to zoo tiger? Any ideas? Yes?
We're exhausted from the struggle of jungle tiger.
We might be tired. It is hard work.
Yeah.
I am with you. It's hard work to spend time in the jungle. What else?
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure. Would anyone agree with that one? That's probably at play. Anything else? Food in the zoo. More, we could say more certainty. Like, for sure we're gonna get the meal in the zoo. For sure. The truth is, if we had more time, we could come up with 100 reasons we might stay in the zoo. 100 reasons, maybe more than 100 reasons we might zoo tiger. I think some of these answers and responses are environmental things that we don't have much control over. Some of them. Like, the truth is, some people have unfair challenges and obstacles in their environment that can certainly get in the way of the learning process or make it much more difficult than it needs to be. And some people have maybe unfair advantages that can help the learning process. And a lot of these environmental things are out of our hands. It doesn't mean they're not real, they are. As far as things that we can control, I think the two biggest reasons we zoo tiger are stories and fear. Fear, you got that one already. It's the fear of looking bad, the fear of the unknown, the fear of change, the fear of being judged, the fear of messing up. Stories are a little different. They're what they call limiting beliefs, like I can't learn that, I can't do that. In my opinion, stories and fear are the biggest reasons we zoo tiger that we have control over. Stories and fear are universal. We all have them. Regardless of how old we are or what we do, everyone has stories and fear, and I think they're a big reason we end up in the zoo. This is my kind of nephew. His name is Leighton. He's 6. We were hanging out over the holidays. We were really bored just sitting on a couch, and I decided to show off. So I showed him a trick called quarter snatching. You put a quarter on your elbow, you swing your hand down and catch it. To be real, it looks cool, but it's super easy to do. So I did it a few times, and again, he's 6, so he thought I was magic. He's like, oh my goodness, you have to teach me how to do this. So I showed him a few more times. He decided he wanted to try. So he puts a quarter on his elbow, swung his hand down, completely missed. Picked it up, put it back on his arm, swung his hand down, and smacked the quarter across the room. Ran and got the quarter, put it back on his arm one more time, swung his hand down, missed. There was no 4th attempt. He goes, that's dumb, and went back to the couch. In this scenario, would you agree that the couch is the comfort zone? Comfort zone is the zoo. So in this scenario, 6-year-old Leighton is choosing to go back to the zoo. We zoo tiger because of stories and fear. What do you think his story was in this scenario? I can't learn this. That's the overarching story, is I can't learn this. And now underneath that, it could be, this is too hard, I'm too young, or something like that. But the big picture is, I can't learn this. What about the fear side of the equation? I hate being bad at this. I hate messing up. I hate not being able to catch the quarter. Stories and fear send him back to the couch. The goal with any talk I give, regardless of the audience, is very simple. The whole goal here is to figure out how we can jungle tiger a little bit more and how we can help others jungle tiger a little bit more. My old school approach to this was by yelling and motivating and screaming at people. I'd come in and go, you got it, jungle tiger, just do it. And I think sometimes it feels good to present like that, and even feels good to hear that upbeat, hyped up presentation. But I don't know if it's the best way to teach. I don't think it's about yelling and motivating. I think it's about going slow, having some empathy, and unpacking stories and fear and talking about like what those things are, where they come from, and unpacking some tools about how we can work to overcome those. Our thinking now is, if we understand the enemies a little bit better, we can win a few more battles and spend a little more time in the jungle. So that's the goal. Not here to hype you up, not here to motivate, just to present some research around stories and fear so we can figure out how to beat those things. All good with that? Okay, let's start with stories. To overcome stories, we need to follow the lead of Carol Dweck. You've probably heard of her by now. She's like a rock star in the world of education and sports and learning in general. I do want to spend some time on her research because there are a ton of misconceptions, but I'm going to give a quick overview so we're on the same page. Dweck has been researching learning for longer than I've been alive, and what she's discovered is so simple and so important, that the way we think about skills and development can have a big impact on how we learn. The way we think about skills and development can have an impact on how we grow. Through her work, they've identified two big ways we can think about skills and development. Sometimes we operate from what she calls a fixed mindset. In a fixed mindset, we believe skills are something you're sort of born with, that you have them or you don't, and that you can't really change that. We believe some people are born to be math people, other people definitely not. And some people are born to be leaders, other people definitely not. Skills are something you have or you don't, and you can't really change it. That's why they call it a fixed mindset. Other times we operate from what she calls a growth mindset. Here we believe that we are in control of our skills, that we earn and develop them. That if someone's good with numbers, it's because they've built that skill. If someone can't dance, it's because they haven't danced enough. It's not about believing you're good at everything. It's about believing I can build my skills. I am in control of my skills. I can learn stuff. If skills are built, I can build them, I can grow. The core belief of someone in a growth mindset is I can grow. In a fixed mindset, it's different. If I believe skills are something you have or you don't and that I can't really change that, my core belief tends to be I can't or don't have to learn and grow. I can't is I'm not a math person and I can't change that. Don't have to is I'm a natural at this and I don't need to work at it. So there's two sides of the fixed mindset. The big argument here is depending on what mindset we're operating from, this can have a huge impact on how we learn. And because her research is so simple and powerful, groups from around the world are building this into their culture. I spend a ton of time in Anaheim with the Olympic women's volleyball team. That's a screenshot of the whiteboard from their gym. Every day at the top it says Job 1 Growth Mindset. This is the Olympic level of sports, building their entire program around this research. Over the last few years, I've been lucky to work with some amazing groups. The workshop, the principles that we're teaching today, I taught the exact same ones in Seattle with Microsoft. And they're using this to develop more of an innovative culture within their company. I flew to Tokyo and did this same workshop with Ferrari's location out there. And they're using this to develop better leaders. I've done this with the Cleveland Indians, UCLA football team, Target. Didn't get any discounts, but whatevs. I think one of the most important workshops I've ever done was a few months ago. I spent a couple days in a U.S. penitentiary in West Virginia, and they built what's called a Reentry Program around this, where many of the guys in that prison had been there for 15, 20 years, and they prepped them to be released with this stuff. And to see the way that that hit home was pretty amazing. Probably the coolest day of my life. I'm not showing you these logos and talking about other groups to like flex and brag. I'm just showing that there are many applications to this research. This just isn't about raising our math scores by 2 points. I think the value of growth mindset is it's one of the important factors to help us to become better learners. And the truth is, developing the skill of being a good learner, that's a powerful skill because we can deploy that in any arena. And I think a growth mindset is like the foundation to build that skill. I've spent more than enough time hyping this up, which means we can zoom in on two concrete ideas now. How do the mindsets work the way they do? And then most importantly, how can we actually build a growth mindset? To start that conversation, we need to work it around this statement. Our mindsets can impact our actions. Would you agree effort, challenges, mistakes, feedback, and experiments are 5 things that could help us grow? There are other things. We could put 40 other actions up there, but those are 5 big ones. And I want to work our conversation around these 5 things. And I want to show that how we think about learning can change the way we approach those 5 things. Let's just start in a fixed mindset. Again, in a fixed mindset, my big idea towards learning is I can't grow. If that's my belief, I believe I can't grow, how would I look at effort? Why bother? because I can't grow. It's either I'm a natural at this, I don't need to put in effort, or I'm not a math person and putting in effort's not going to change that. Yes, this is supported in Dweck's research, but it's also kind of common sense. If I don't believe I can learn something, I'm probably not going to put in effort. If I'm operating from a strong fixed mindset, how would I look at a challenge? You throw me into a challenge, I meet some adversity, I start to struggle, what am I likely to do? Probably going to give up and check out, because if I don't believe I can change, grow, and adapt, why would I stick with a challenge? I know this is repetitive, but the idea here is my belief is having a big impact on my actions. In a fixed mindset, the research shows we get really worked up and discouraged when we make mistakes. Because if we're making mistakes, that's a sign I don't have the skill, and big picture, I can't change that. In a fixed mindset, we tend to take feedback personally. We get defensive. Why do you think that might be? This one's kind of tricky, but once we get there, it makes sense. Why do we get defensive when we receive feedback in a fixed mindset? One is there's nothing we can do about it, so I don't really appreciate the value of the feedback. And two, if I believe my skills are set, this is like who I am, which means my performance and outcomes are a reflection of me. And if you're critiquing my performance and outcomes, you're critiquing me as a person. That hurts. I think the fifth element's the most obvious. Do you think I'm going to run some experiments and try new things if I don't believe I can grow? Probably not. Again, we could put 30 other actions on the board. The whole idea is if I don't believe I can learn, I'm likely to avoid the things that can help me grow, which is why from a fixed mindset, it's really, really hard to grow and get better. If we change the belief, if we change the mindset, we start to change our actions. We don't even need to go through that. Again, it's common sense. If I believe I can grow, I'm more likely to put in effort, more likely to stick with a challenge, more likely to run experiments, more receptive to feedback. We can prove it by going back to Jerry the skateboarder. If Jerry the skateboarder had a growth mindset towards that specific trick, what would a growth mindset belief towards that trick be? I believe I can learn the trick, because it's the belief I can grow. That's what a growth mindset is. I believe I can learn this trick. All right, so what would a fixed mindset belief towards the trick be? There's no way I can learn this trick. Mindsets shape action. What would he have done if he had a strong fixed mindset? You got it. It's one of two things. Either never tried to begin with. I can't learn this trick. Why should I try? Or he would have tried it 3 times and went, yeah, I was right. Definitely can't learn the trick. The argument here is if we don't start or give up early, we don't land the trick. If he's coming from a fixed mindset, he probably doesn't figure it out. We love that video because it's a reminder of what learning looks like. He's putting in effort, taking on a challenge, struggling, experimenting. I think that process was fueled by the belief he could do it. And to me, that illustrates the power of growth mindset. It is not some magic formula. It is not some magic pill. Growth mindset is the fuel. We still have to earn our skills and crash and stumble, and that is not always fun. That can be frustrating and take longer than we want it to. We still have to earn our skills, but the belief provides the fuel. When we have enough fuel, we're likely to stay in the jungle a little longer and eventually develop the skill. Sometimes when we get to this section, I can see people's eyes going back and forth on these 2 icons. And you can see people going, which one am I? A lot of people start labeling everyone in their life. That's my son, that's my daughter, that's my husband. It's an easy trap to fall into. The truth is, we're all both of these things. There's no such thing as just a growth mindset person or just a fixed. This could change by the day, by the project, by the skill, by our mood. Jerry the skateboarder is a great example. We watched that video. It would be easy to say, Jerry has a growth mindset. We know Jerry had a growth mindset towards that specific trick. He might have a fixed mindset towards lots of things in life. I think a better word than mindset would be mind state. It's like, in this current moment, I believe I can learn this thing. That might not be true in 10 minutes. That might not be true tomorrow. So the idea here is just to be aware of the language and characteristics of these two mindsets. And once we're aware of the characteristics, we're better at identifying which one we're operating from. And the best news is we can change it, because beliefs happen between our ears. We don't really control the jungle tiger moments that are thrown at us. We don't really control the problems, challenges, and obstacles that are thrown at us. And we definitely don't control the things people say to us. But a skill we can develop is maintaining the belief we can grow despite the situation or despite the things that people say to us. No one is perfect with that, but I think being aware of these two characteristics and aware of the language, we can work to spend more time in a growth mindset, which can have a huge impact on our capacity to learn. This is the SFCOH-TGGAS. It's on the test, so pay attention. This stands for the self-fulfilling cycle of how to get good at shit. Highly technical, I know, but it, I think, proves the point. Belief feeds to action, action to growth, and growth back to belief. If you go through the cycle with a growth mindset, we see how fueling beliefs can be. This cycle works for any skill, big ones and small ones. Let's go through the cycle in a growth mindset. So again, at the top, my core belief is I can learn. That's a growth mindset. I can grow. This could work for a big skill like I can learn math, or a small skill like I can learn that equation. A big skill, I can learn that new position or work with this new age group. Small skill, I can learn that new technology. Big or small, the cycle works the same. The idea is, if I believe I can learn, I'm more likely to take action. And that's a point we already made. If I put in the work and take action, would you agree I'm certainly more likely to see growth and progress? When I see the growth and progress, it reinforces and strengthens the belief. Yeah, I was right, I can grow. And I'm more likely to continue through the cycle. The big idea is that this is incredibly self-fulfilling. By believing I can grow, I'm more likely to take action, which means I'm more likely to grow. We could shortcut that statement and say, if I believe I can learn, I'm more likely to learn. Now, this is not some fake motivational talk where I'm standing up here with the mic saying, listen, you just have to believe and you can learn anything. That's not our message. You know and I know action is the key to growth, period. But we're probably not going to take action if we're missing the belief at the top. And that's what happens when we operate from more of a fixed mindset. In a fixed mindset, if we go through the cycle, we have our stories at the top. I can't learn math, can't learn that equation, could never work with that age group, could never learn that new technology. Fixed mindset stories rob us of the action. And again, that's a point we already made. Without the action, it's impossible to grow. This is why my grandma can't use this. She looks at this and goes, there's no way I could learn that thing. Would that be a growth or fixed mindset? Fixed. With her fixed mindset story, my grandma's never touched one of these things, which is why she still has a flip phone. But then if you think about it, millions of grandmas can use this. Is it because they got lucky they were born with that smartphone skill? Nah. There's no such thing as a smartphone gene because these things weren't around when the grandmas were born. The only difference between the grandmas that can use this and mine, it's so simple, but it's true, they tried. They tried because they looked at this with a little more curiosity, a little more of a growth mindset. They go, how does that work? They figure out how to open it up. They send you weird emoji texts. But after a while, they can use the stupid phone. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't a gene. The grandmas that learned to use the phone because they tried. We said that the growth mindset side of the cycle was self-fulfilling. And it's kind of funny to make fun of my grandma. The truth is, we do the same thing she does with other skills, probably more important skills than using a smartphone. Which means the fixed mindset side of the cycle is also self-fulfilling. If I don't believe I can learn something, I'm probably not going to do the work, which means I'm probably not going to learn the skill. In fact, we say we sort of become our stories. The stories become true if they rob me of the action, and they usually do. And the examples of this are everywhere. What if at the top, my story, what if my 4th grade math teacher tells me, Trev, you're not a math person? That's a common story. Think about how that would shape my action. If I really believe the story, every class, every assignment, it's what's the point? I'm not a math person. Do you see that the story is robbing me of reps and practice? Without the action, the story becomes true. I believe I'm not a math person. I avoid taking action. It robs me of the reps. I become not a math person. Liz Gilbert and Brene Brown, 2 of my favorite authors, they did a podcast together, and they talked about this idea they call creativity scarves. And there's a lot of research that supports this as well. It shows when we're young, we'll make something or draw something. Someone around us will tell us we're not artsy, not creative. If we believe that story, what do? Stop making stuff. Stop drawing stuff. So the story is robbing me of practice. Without the practice, I become someone who's not artsy, not creative. The stories become true if they rob us of the action. If we had more time together, we could identify hundreds of stories from this room alone. We could identify hundreds of stories from the students we lead and work with. Everyone has these. The big problem is stories build our cage, fear keeps us in it. This is why we zoo tiger. So like our comfort zone that's like built from our stories of I can't learn that, I can't do that. Now the punchline with the cycle, the big idea here is if we change the belief at the top, we start to change the system. We could talk for hours about the action side of the equation, but big picture right now is we have to change the fuel source. We have to get those beliefs right. If we change the belief at the top, we start to impact the whole system. Old school Trevor used to go around telling people, you need to have a growth mindset. Trust me, it helps you grow. Just believe, you got it. And that's how like most people teach growth mindset. It's like, you need to believe you can grow, and then we just like hammer that home, believe you can grow. I think a better way to do this is to kind of go deeper. And I think there are 3 effective ways we can work to build that belief, not just tell people they need to believe. 1, so simple, reflect. We started to do this earlier, but it's such an effective approach. Remember the skills you built and how we built the skills. When we reflect and remember, like, wow, I wasn't good at this and now I am. That's a good sort of backdoor way of building a growth mindset. In fact, one of the best conversations you could have with anyone is, tell me about something you're good at. How did you get good at that thing? Regardless of what they say, whether it's an app, video game, or a sport, it doesn't matter. There's going to be 2 patterns here. You were not good when you started, and you changed that through practice. That's a powerful sort of reflection tactic of remembering that we earn our skills. We should give ourselves credit for that. Another thing we can do, learn new stuff. There's a couple colleges that have done this, and there's some middle schools, they call it the anti-talent show. So I work with this middle school in Kansas City, and they had all the teachers, all the students in the middle school. They had to pick something that they couldn't do. They spent 10 days practicing and did an anti-talent show. So some of the students learned to juggle, some of them learned to ride unicycles, some of them learned to do slam poetry or paint or draw. At the end of 10 days, no one had mastered the skill, but most of the students could do it. Do you see the overarching lesson here is you can learn stuff if you practice. Not just telling the students you need to have a growth mindset, setting up a project where they prove to themselves you can grow. The third thing we can do is look into the research of what they call neuroplasticity. It's a big word, but it's a really important word. Neuroplasticity is arguably one of the most important topics we can look at in order to become a better learner. I could talk to you for a couple days about the research of neuroplasticity, but I just want to give a few of the big principles. Neuroplasticity is the study of how our brains are continually changing with our thoughts through our actions and from our environment. Over the last 40 or 50 years, the research is clear. Our brains never stop changing, which is good news. It means we always have the capacity to learn new stuff. There are phases where our brain can change more effectively and quickly than others, but it never loses its capacity to change, which is great news for learning. The way it changes is also important to talk about. Our brain is like a series of circuits and pathways. Anytime we do something, we fire a pathway. And the idea is if we fire a pathway enough times, our brain's designed to reinforce that circuit and we become better at it. This is how practice builds a skill. The neuroscientists say what fires together, wires together. Neuroplasticity. I make changes in my brain by taking action. The most famous study to come from this research actually comes from London. They did a study back in the day before we had these things to tell us how to drive around, and they looked at a group of people before they became London cab drivers. So they had a group of people, they gave them a brain scan, and they looked at a region of their brain called their hippocampus. This part of our brain's associated with memory. What they found is this group of people had an average-sized hippocampus. Then they let them go through the process of becoming a London cab driver. So they spent a lot of time studying in a classroom. They spent a lot of time driving around the streets of London, memorizing all these different roads. After some time, they came back and scanned their brains again. What they found is this group of people, after taking part in this action and practicing and memorizing, they found that that region of their brain grew by 25%, a physical, visible change in their brain. What is this study saying, and why does it matter? It's not saying, yo, to be a London cab driver, you need a big hippocampus. It's saying, being a London cab driver, taking that action, fired certain pathways, and over time, firing those pathways made a physical change in our brain. They've seen similar results with professional violin players, regions of their brain physically changing from practice. They did a study where they taught a group of students to juggle, and over the course of a couple months, the students that learned to juggle, they could see physical changes in their brain. Practice changes our brain, neuroplasticity. The way I think about it is our brain is a lot like a muscle, and I know that that's like one of the biggest learning cliches of all time. Everyone says that. Brain's like a muscle, gotta work it out. If you dig into the research, I think there are 4 layers to this statement that are actually pretty true. If I was in the weight room doing a set of 10 curls, which rep out of the 10 would be the hardest to do? The last few. The last few I start to struggle, turn purple, my lip does weird stuff. Those last few are hard. Out of those 10 or 12 reps, which few are the most important if I'm trying to get stronger? The first few or the last few? All the reps matter, but the growth happens on the 9th, 10th, and 11th. Where there's some resistance and struggle, my muscles grow. We can answer that question because they taught us that in like 3rd grade health class. What we need to realize is our brain works in a similar fashion. There's a couple from UCLA, Robert Bjork and Elizabeth Bjork. They have their own learning lab, and for over 40 years, they've been researching our brains and how we grow. And their research shows when we move through what they call a desirable difficulty, we learn and remember more than if there's no difficulty at all. When my brain experiences the scientific term, contextual interference, I actually learn and remember more. The way I think about their research is I could go to the weight room with my awesome cutoff shirt and my really cool headband. And I could walk up to the weight rack, grab the 1 pounder, go over to the mirror, crack my neck, put on my mean face, and then just bang reps out like this. I could bang these reps out all day with my 1 pound weight. Would I get much stronger doing that? Probably not. I might make some progress, but not much, because what's missing? Yeah, the resistance and struggle is missing. That's easy to understand. Same rules apply to learning. That's the difference between the 2 tigers. Now, it's important to talk about the term desirable difficulties, because sometimes people hear this message and go, oh, I have to struggle to grow. And then we go to the weight room and try to pick up the 200-pounder. I'm struggling, definitely not growing. That's too hard. Same rules apply to learning. We're not saying leap way out into the jungle. We're saying venture out of our comfort zone, get to the edge of our abilities. That's where we grow. That space is different for all of us. My brain is like a muscle, layer number 2. If I wanted to make a physical change in my body, think about how I would do that. If I wanted to make a physical change in my body, I might sign up for a gym, hire a trainer, change my diet, and I'm definitely going to work out like multiple times a week for a really long time because I know that's how we build muscle and change our body. We have to deploy the same tactics to learning. So many times we try to learn something, we try it twice, it doesn't work, we go, oh, yep, can't learn that. That's the equivalent of doing like one set of bench press and then looking in the mirror like, oh, not bigger, can't grow. We would never do that because we know it takes struggle and time and reps to build a muscle. The same rules apply to building a skill. It takes struggle and time and reps to fire the pathway and make a change. I can't go to the weight room and watch someone do squats and I get stronger. That'd be sweet. But that's not how it works. I could watch them do squats. I could learn from their form and technique. I could learn how to do a squat. All that is useful information. But to actually see the results, I have to do the squats. Same rules apply to learning. I can watch, listen, learn how to do something. I can learn from someone's experiences, their tactics and techniques. But when it gets down to it, the best way to build the skill is to fire the pathway, and one of the best ways to fire the pathway is to take action. This is so simple, you already know this, but it is true. One of the best ways to learn something is by doing it, because when we do it, we're firing that pathway. If we want to get better at public speaking, the more reps and at-bats we get doing that is the best way to build that skill. If we want to get better at writing, we need to write more. We need to fire those pathways more. The last layer of this. Would you agree that everyone in this room is probably not going to become a bodybuilder? Yeah, look at me. I'm probably not going to be a bodybuilder. But would you agree that everyone in this room could make any muscle stronger if they worked it out? Probably much stronger than we even know. Same rules apply to learning. We're not saying everyone's going to master every skill. But I think everyone can get better at any skill if we fire the pathway, much better than we realize. That's the whole argument here. The last thing I want to touch on, especially when we work with coaches and teachers and leaders. If the brain is like a muscle, we have to be wary of robbing reps. So let's pretend I'm in the weight room doing some squats. I'm trying to do 12 squats and you're spotting me. I do the first 3 and it's pretty easy, I'm feeling good. But that 4th one starts to get kind of hard. You're my spotter, you go, yo, hold up, I got you. Let me do the last 8 for you. Would we ever do that? No, because we know the last 8, like those are the important ones. Those are the important ones. We have to, again, deploy the same tactics to learning. So many times the people around us start to face the challenge, they start to struggle, and we come in and rob them of that experience. I'm not saying just let them like kind of float out there on their own. We can coach, we can teach, we can support. Just like in the weight room, we're there, I got you. I might even have to help you with the last couple, but I'm not gonna rob you of the struggle. Same rules apply to learning. We can coach and support, we can be there, we can spot, but be very wary of robbing people of the challenges and struggle. If you think about it, problem solving, dealing with adversity, and handling change would be 3 very important skills in life, regardless of what we do. Problem solving, dealing with adversity, and handling change. I can't talk anymore. We have to treat those things as skills. What I mean by that is we can't get good at problem solving if we're never allowed to face problems, or every problem is already solved for me. And we can't get good at dealing with adversity if I'm never allowed to fall. I can't get good at dealing with change if I'm in an environment that never changes. I can't learn to hunt if I spend all my time in the zoo. That's the argument. I think it's about being aware that most things in life are skills, and if they are a skill, it's something we can get better at. There's the obvious skills like math and shooting a basketball and writing. But then there's the bigger skills like leadership is a skill, Friendliness is a skill. Being a great teammate is a skill. The rule of thumb, if someone can get better at it, it is a skill, which means we can get better at it too. We might not reach their level, but we can learn enough to be dangerous. We can get better at the skill. The hardest part of this first section is the stories we mentioned earlier. I can't learn this, I can't do that. They're not really going anywhere. Like everyone in this room, we're going to hear stories about what we can't learn, can't do. All of the people that we lead and work with, they're going to hear stories too. The good news is once we're exposed to the research, once we understand growth mindset, neuroplasticity, we can start to deflect the stories. We don't have to listen to them. In Ohio, I did this workshop with a group of 5th graders. In the hallway afterwards, I overheard a conversation. This 5th grade boy says to a 5th grade girl, he goes, "Yeah, I don't know about growth mindset because you're a girl, which means you can't get good at math." So stupid. Her response was awesome though. She goes, "Yeah, math's not my best subject. I guess I just need to fire those pathways some more." Yes. Awesome response. Most of us, I would have probably listened to the story at that time of my life, like, oh, I guess I'm not a math person. That could be incredibly destructive. I love her response because it shows growth mindset is not some irrational belief that we're the best at everything. It's not some irrational confidence. Her response wasn't, "Shut up, I'm the best at math." No, she kind of owned it, like math's not my best subject, but I can get better if I practice. I think growth mindset is being aware we all have our strengths and weaknesses. We're all different, but we can build on top of both. That's the value of a growth mindset. A few weeks ago, I scored the interview of my life. I actually had the opportunity to Skype with the guy who discovered neuroplasticity. His name is Michael Merzenich. I have a couple clips of the interview that I'd like to show you.
It turns out that plasticity in the brain is its big trick. It's the main thing that makes it so fabulous. Absolutely, everyone has the capacity to be better at virtually everything. With that understanding, miracles can occur in your capacity to understand or do complicated things that you never thought you'd be able to do. You are designed to be continuously improvable. Nobody's done. Nobody's defined what their limits are. I can tell you whatever you think your limits are, you're wrong. You can be better next week, a little bit, but in a year you could be a lot better at almost anything that matters to you. And that's the way you should think about it. I mean, if I want to be better at these things that matter to me, let's get to work.
I've done a lot of interviews and I've hung out with a lot of scientists. And for someone, he's a neuroscientist that's been studying this since the 70s, to be that definitive about, look, you can grow. We can build our skills. I think that says a lot. Again, I'm not standing up here saying like anyone can do anything. Like I'm not gonna go play in the NBA because I know about neuroplasticity. But we are certainly saying for the most part we can all get better at stuff. And the more stuff we get better at, usually the more things we can do. Rather than sitting in the zoo letting the stories keep us there, the challenge is let's go to the jungle and actually put them to the test. I don't know about you, but for me, very rarely would I put my stories to the test. I would tell them, but I really wouldn't challenge them. So the idea now is to be aware of our stories and understand. If we put this thing in the right environment and give it some time to struggle, to fire the pathways, to solve the problems, I think we'll be surprised, like, wow, our capacity to grow is much greater than we realize. We're gonna go at different speeds. There are some head starts. There are some challenges along the way. But I think the argument here is we can all get better at stuff. Very rarely do we take advantage of this thing, and I think a big reason is our stories. A big reason we stay in the zoo is because of our stories. Now there's one more piece of the equation that I want to get into, but you need a brain break, and so do I. So I told you at the start that the whole idea with this program, the whole idea with these workshops is very simple. Just here to share some of the principles, some of the ideas that I've learned in the last however long studying the learning process. As far as things that I've learned in that journey, that statement behind me, I'm really certain of that statement, that we can build our skills. I would get that one tattooed on my arm. I feel really strongly about that statement. In 2016, I lived in Los Angeles for about a year, and my apartment was like 3 blocks from the beach. Every morning I'd wake up, make a coffee, walk to the beach, drink a coffee, and just kind of hang out. In my neighborhood, most of the middle school and high school students would wake up in the morning and they would go surfing before school. So some mornings there'd be like 200 students out there surfing, and I'm sitting on the beach drinking my coffee. From day one of doing this little routine, I started to think to myself, yo, it would be awesome to learn how to surf. For the entire year that I lived there, I never tried to surf one time. Why? I like it. Someone over here said fear. That is the right response. Sometimes when I ask groups this, like literally last week, someone raised their hand and goes, because of your fixed mindset stories. Not in that scenario. In 2016, what I'm trying to say is, I knew about growth mindset and I knew about neuroplasticity, which means in that scenario, I believed surfing is a skill, one that I could build if I practiced. So in this example, it wasn't my fixed mindset keeping me on the beach because I believed that I could grow. The thing that was keeping me on the beach was fear. What do you think the fear was about? It wasn't sharks. It was a bigger fear than sharks. It was the fear of looking like an idiot in front of the students. I think the more we think about the learning process, the more that we could agree that fear might be our biggest hurdle to getting out of our comfort zone and jungle tigering and learning new stuff. In fact, I think you agree because when I asked you at the start, why do we zoo tiger? Most of the responses that we heard were related to fear. Now the good news is, anybody can overcome fear. That's a skill. Overcoming fear is a skill that we could all build. But the way to overcome fear is a little different than you might think. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and here's the challenge. There's no right or wrong answer. You could either write it down or just think about it in your head. When you're working with someone that's really afraid to do something, what would you say to them? If you're working with someone who's really afraid to do something, what would you say to them? No right or wrong answer. Think about it for 30 seconds. I'll even play some music. Ready, go. All right. Figure out how to overcome fear. We have to start with where fear comes from. Fear is actually wired in. It comes from a region of our brain called our amygdala. Some people call this your lizard brain. Doesn't matter what you call it. We know a few things about this. First, everyone has an amygdala. It's like the size of 2 almonds. It lives by our brain stem. It's there, I promise. We also know sort of why we have an amygdala. In a big way, it's there for survival. It's there to keep us safe and alive. And one of its most common tactics to keeping us safe and alive is it generates fear to steer us away from danger. It uses fear to keep us safe. This is why I can walk in a straight line right now and I feel fine. I could even go backwards, still feel fine. If this was taking place at the edge of a 100-foot cliff, how would I be feeling right now? I'd be freaking out right now. I'd be freaking out because I have an amygdala. It would detect this danger, detect this threat, and it would be generating a lot of fear right now. And that fear is a signal to me like, dude, get away from the edge of the cliff. Are you with me? It's using fear to steer me from danger. And our amygdala, to be honest, it's like great at its job. But there's a problem. Our lizard brain doesn't know the difference between the good challenges in life or the dangerous ones. And it doesn't know the difference between the good and bad risks. And there's certainly some of both. Its tactic then is to just really avoid them altogether because it doesn't know the difference. There are 4 things that really enhance and generate fear: uncertainty, attention, change, struggle. Those 4 words could absolutely describe a dangerous scenario, without a doubt. But those 4 words are also present in some of the best learning opportunities as well. If you think about it, art and sports and performance and competition and learning, it involves lots of uncertainty and attention, change, and struggle. In fact, if you had to define the jungle, it would be uncertainty, change, struggle. So those 4 things are present when we learn and grow at our best. The idea is, if those 4 words are present, fear will be present. And more times than not, when we feel fear, we find a way to avoid doing the thing that's causing the fear, which is a really good approach when we're in danger. Avoiding the thing that's causing the fear. Avoiding the cliff that's causing the fear. Great. Avoiding the thing that causes the fear is not a great approach for learning and getting better. Avoiding uncertainty, attention, change, and struggle when it comes to development is not an effective approach. So yes, this does keep us safe from walking too close to the edge of the cliff, but this is also why sometimes we're in a group, maybe in a classroom, a smaller room than this. Have you ever had a question or had an answer and then talked yourself out of sharing it or asking it? Have you ever done that? Nod your head if you've done that. All of us have done that. Now that we sort of know about the amygdala, why do you think sometimes we talk ourselves out of asking or answering? Why do we sometimes feel weird about doing that? These people are going to judge what we say. What word would that be associated with? Uncertainty. It's like, this might be the wrong question or the wrong answer. So we have some uncertainty. What else is present? You just spoke up. A lot of people in the room were listening. Some people in the room went, phoom. So what do you have on you now? Yeah. When we ask, when we speak up in a group, uncertainty and attention are there. And more times than not, in that scenario, we talk ourselves out of responding or asking. Would you agree that that is a small jungle tiger moment? And choosing to not respond is choosing to zoo tiger. And if we do ask the question, that's choosing to jungle tiger. And in this scenario, if we choose not to respond, to not ask, to not share, I think it has way more to do with fear than our fixed mindset. So we're zoo tigering in this scenario, I think, in a big way because of fear. And we've all done that before. Back in the day, we have a paper due in 2 weeks. When do we write the paper? Same. Or the morning of. Procrastination in a big way comes from the amygdala. The way that works, every single night leading up to the due date, there's a simple choice to be made. I could sit down, do the research and write, or I could watch Netflix. Which one do you think my lizard brain wants to do? Netflix. You're right, but I'm going to push you on it. Why? What's really going on? our lizard is not that smart. What I mean by that is, it doesn't know the details of the situation. Through its eyes, it's not, oh, we could write a research paper or take notes and write or watch Netflix. No. Its world is way more cut and dry than that. Through the eyes of the lizard, the decision is, we could either struggle right now or not struggle right now. So it doesn't know what we're doing, it's just trying to avoid those four things. It's always going to gravitate towards let's not struggle right now. It's always going to gravitate towards certainty. It wants to avoid the struggle, avoid the change, avoid the attention, regardless of what we're doing. I don't know about you, but I'm good at this. The lizard wins the battle, and then I justify it. So I go, I'm going to watch the entire season of Ozark tonight. But I'm definitely going to do double the work tomorrow. And I'll usually keep making that deal till the very end. Another thing I do a lot of, I call it downgrading struggle. Instead of writing a new article for the website, something that involves some uncertainty, some struggle, I'll clean my house twice. So I'm going around like staying busy, vacuuming, feeling productive. But what I'm really doing is choosing the option that involves less uncertainty, attention, change, and struggle. And this is something that we all do all the time. To summarize, our lizard brain is always going to gravitate towards easy over hard, no matter what it is we're doing. It's always going to gravitate towards the path of least resistance and wants instant gratification, fast, easy, safe, now, regardless of what we're doing. Now, to be clear, this approach is excellent when we're in danger. Avoiding those four things is really, really good when we're in danger, but most of the time we're not in danger. And the approach of avoiding those four things is usually sending us in the wrong direction. This is why we fear public speaking more than texting and driving. One of those things is good for us, one is definitely not good for us. We're way more afraid of this. Why? Because this involves some of that. We've all been in our basement watching TV for a couple of hours, maybe Ozark. And we know for a fact there are no monsters in the basement. But then we turn the TV off. Then we turn the lights off. And then we walk upstairs like this. That's our lizard brain. So think about that. That extra skip in the step, that's the lizard. We know there's nothing in the basement. But as soon as it's dark, the lizard goes, ugh, I'm gone. It's funny to joke about. The problem is, that's the force that drives lots of our behavior. That's the force that's making lots of our decisions. When the lizard is at the wheel and we are not in danger, it's usually sending us in the wrong direction. The statement we made earlier is that our stories can rob us of opportunities to grow. Stories can rob us of reps and experiences that can help us learn, grow, and get better. I think fear robs us of even more. If we had the time, we could come up with 1,000 examples from this room alone of fear getting in the way of opportunities to learn, grow, and get better. We could come up with 10,000 examples from the people you lead and work with. We all have these. Since I've learned about this topic, I've been traveling around. It's been a piece of our workshop. And a question sometimes that I pose to the group when we have the time is, when has fear robbed you of an opportunity to get better at something? I would say in the last 3 years, I've heard over 5,000 different responses to that question from every age group you could imagine. I want to share 3 that I think tell this story. 1, a 3rd grade student. This is a fun workshop. So our first hurdle, when we were talking about lizard brain, they started grabbing the back of their head like, what? Once we explained, it's not a lizard in there, it's just a word. It was a really cool workshop. This kid got up, he goes, I play baseball, and in every single game, I tell my coach I'm gonna play in right field, because no one ever hits the ball to right field. He said, I kinda wanna play in the infield, but I'm afraid if someone hits a ball at me, I might mess up, so I every time volunteer to play right field. By the end of the day, he came back, he was kind of mad. He goes, "My lizard tells me to play right field." And he's right. And I love this story because everyone can relate to this, where there was something we wanted to do, could do, maybe even should do, but when the time comes to do it, we end up in right field. That's our comfort zone. That's the zoo. We've all been there. A Major League Baseball player, one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. I did this workshop with their pitching staff. He got up in front of the group and owned. He goes, "There's lots of times at the end of the game I throw the easy pitch, not the right pitch." And he went a step farther and owned it. He goes, "That's cost us wins." I love this 1-2 combo because we have a Little League baseball player talking about his fear driving his actions. We have one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball talking about fear driving his actions, illustrating the point. We all have amygdalas. This is something that we all deal with. A high school student from Des Moines, Iowa, she shared in front of her classmates. She said, "I was in the final qualifying round to get on The Voice, the singing show. I had to sing one more song. If it went well, I'm on the show. Came time to sing, she freaked out and left." When she shared this in front of her classmates, there was like an audible groan in the room, like, "What?" And they're kind of right, like singing that song is a life-changing opportunity. Here's the truth about fear. It's easy to sit here and talk about what we could do and should do, and it's even easier to talk about what other people should do and could do. Like, it's really easy to be like, "Oh, the third grader should play in the infield. He'll be all right." And it's easy for us to say, "She should just get on that stage, sing that song. It's a life-changing opportunity." True, but if we're in her shoes with her experiences, we probably do exactly what she did because fear is such a powerful force. It's easy to talk about, just like jungle tigering, easy to talk about, hard to do. The other thing I want to touch on with the auditioning example, because I think it's relevant for any group. We don't know what would have happened if she sang the song. We have no idea. But I think we can agree on two things. First, you can't make it on the show unless you sing the song. Just like we can't get the job unless we apply, we can't get into the school unless we send in the application. So fear clearly robs us of potential outcomes. But I think it gets in the way of something else that's also valuable, and that's the experience. Would you agree, like getting on the stage and singing the song, that's good for us regardless of how it shakes down. Now, it hurts to not make it, but that's still good practice, like putting ourselves out there. Going through the interview process, putting ourselves out there, that's good practice. That's going to help us be better for the next one. So yes, it robs us of potential outcomes, but I think you could argue robbing us of the experience is even more important. And again, this is something we all relate to. We all have these experiences. I learned about this topic from this guy. His name is Seth Godin, and he is like my absolute hero. In the world of business and marketing, he's on the Mount Rushmore, one of the most brilliant people I will ever interact with in my life. A few years ago, I had the honor of Skyping with him, and during that conversation, he taught me about the lizard brain and fear. If you could see me on the other side of the screen, I chopped it out because my eyes are just this big. Because as he was teaching me this, it rocked my world big time. One, I think this is a big reason we zoo tiger. Two, if you dig enough into our fear, I think sometimes it can be a source of our fixed mindset stories. We teach stories and fears separately, but I think they actually work like this. Sometimes we invent the story as a mask to our fear. It's, "I'm not a math person," is our story, but the truth is that's a mask for the deeper rooted, like, "I'm afraid to be bad at this." Stories can create fear, fear can create stories. And as he taught me this, like, that started to kind of unravel itself. The other reason this hit home, during the conversation, I started thinking about all the times in my life that fear has messed me up. Here's the one I thought of during that talk. I came out of the gates this morning with this intro of like my almost glamorous Duke story of like almost making the basketball team. Aren't I amazing? What I didn't tell you is I almost failed out of Duke after my first year. Going to school in North Carolina after growing up in Wyoming was a big leap out of my comfort zone. I was way in the jungle and I freaked. As soon as I got to the campus, I felt like everyone there was smarter than me, better than me, richer than me, and I felt like I didn't belong. And during my first year of classes at this place I had spent 8 years dreaming about, I never said one word in a class for the entire year. I never asked a question, never participated in discussion, never answered a question. On the days I was supposed to present to the class, I would skip every single time. Why? I was freaking out. And when we're in that place of fear, I think the stories start to follow. My big story during that year was, if I say the wrong thing, they're going to know I'm the idiot from Wyoming. So wrong, so false. But do you see, that's coming from a big place of fear. That robbed me of a year of development, and to be honest, I was that close to failing out because I was so afraid to participate. So let's take a step back. We go back to the conversation with Seth. He teaches me about lizard brain and fear, and I flash back to that. What do you think I asked him next? A better question. We've been talking about, for about 20 minutes now, all the things fear can get in the way of. What do you want to know next? Yeah. How do we overcome that? How do we beat that? The logic I used during the conversation with Seth was, fear made me bad at learning. If I get rid of the fear, then I can be good at learning. So the question I asked him word for word, how do you kill the lizard brain? And here's his actual response.
So I'm thrilled you asked the question that way, because that is exactly the wrong question. If you are seeking to destroy, defeat, conquer the lizard brain, you will fail. It cannot be done. Because when you try to fight the lizard brain, you are giving it more power. Your brain is nothing but a chemistry experiment. It's electricity and chemicals. And when you push back on the lizard brain, when you try to reason with the lizard brain, when you just say one more this or one more that or don't worry, it inflames and releases more chemicals. You cannot win. What you can do is dance with the lizard brain. What you can do is realize that the lizard brain is a compass. And then when it freaks out, it is telling you you are on to something. When it freaks out, it's telling you you're about to do something that's brave and bold and powerful. And you should listen to it by doing the opposite of what it wants you to do. That when we listen for the lizard brain and welcome it and thank it for giving us a clue, then we can use it to our own ends. So if you talk to the great artists of all time, of any time, what you see is they do their best work in the moments when part of their brain is telling them it will never work, they'll never amount to anything, they're fraud, they're going to get caught, they're afraid. Those are the moments you say, yes, thank you, and do it anyway.
All right, so how do we get rid of fear? This is the hard part. It's like our amygdala is not going anywhere, which means, in a big way, neither is fear. And if we can really wrap our heads around that statement, we can start to accept the fact that fear is going to be there. And once we understand that, we can start to dance with fear or do the opposite like Seth says. Now, disclaimer so you don't sue me someday. If you're in danger, please listen to the lizard brain. It's doing its job. We know the difference between when we're in danger or it's a learning opportunity. If the goal is to grow, it's usually best to do the opposite of what the fear is saying. And if we zoom out, I think it makes sense. If we know the lizard wants to keep us in the zoo, if we ever do get to the jungle, of course it's going to freak. The freak out is a sign we're out of our comfort zone. It's a signal. Fear can point us to jungle tiger moments if we know how it works. So now I'm standing up here saying we should use fear and feel fear. To be honest with you, that's a 180 from how I used to talk about this. I used to go around and tell groups just like this, you got to be fearless. Don't be afraid. Nod your head if you've ever heard that or said that. For sure. Now that we understand where fear comes from, we've looked under the hood and understand sort of how it works, what's wrong with telling people you have to be fearless or don't be afraid? What's wrong with that approach? Yeah, you can't really do it. Here's the bottom line. If I'm doing something that involves uncertainty, attention, change, or struggle, I'm going to feel some fear. And the only way to feel zero fear is to not do it, not care about it, or hold back. And that's not what we're going for. So logically, if I care and it involves some uncertainty, attention, change, struggle, I'm going to feel some fear. I can name that emotion what I want, but it's going to be there. I think the other problem here is this creates a lot of shame around fear. And I think the shame makes the fear worse. So let's say you're sitting in the lobby before your dream job interview. You're sitting on the little couch before your dream job interview. Let's break that down. Do you care about that job interview? Probably, it's your dream job. Is there uncertainty? Yeah, you might get it, you might not. Is there attention? Yeah, just a panel of people judging you, no biggie. Are you gonna feel a little something sitting on that couch? Yeah, here's the problem. If everyone around you is always saying you have to be fearless, don't be afraid, do you see how you might be sitting there and start to tell some stories like, uh-oh, I'm not supposed to feel this fear, but I do. Something must be wrong. I must not be ready. I'm not prepared for this. I am not cut out for this. No one else feels like this. And all of those stories can snowball and make the fear worse. There's a lot of research that shows when we try to suppress fear, we make it worse. The message I'm really trying to hammer home is for people to understand feeling fear before a jungle tiger moment, a test, a presentation, even asking a question or working on a project out of our comfort zone. Feeling fear before a jungle tiger moment, it doesn't mean something's wrong. It doesn't mean we're not ready. It means we're a human. That's the human response to getting out of our comfort zone. Our old school approach to fear paints it as a very negative thing. So we assume if I feel it, something's wrong, I can't or shouldn't do this. With our upgraded approach, we realize fear is normal. Fear is human. And this small adjustment to the way we talk about fear can have a big impact on our actions. At Harvard Business School, they're researching what they call reappraising fear and anxiety. It's a fancy word for just saying like changing the way we think about it. This study is fascinating. First, they picked 3 tasks that are likely to freak us out. 1, public speaking. 2, math tests. 3, singing. So in each 3 of these activities, they had 3 groups of Harvard students. Group 1, before you perform the task, you were taught, calm down, don't be afraid. Group 2 was the control group, so they didn't give you any special training or instructions. Group 3, before you perform the task, you were taught, feeling nervous before tasks like this is normal. It's expected that you might be a little anxious and nervous. So group 1, calm down, don't be afraid. Group 2, nothing. Group 3, it's normal. In each 3 of the tasks, which group do you think performed the worst? Group 1 did worse than the control group. And in each 3 of the tasks, group 3 performed the best. The singing portion, I think, illustrates the message. They had a group like this, in a room like this. At the front of the room was a Nintendo Wii hooked up to a singing game. You had to get up by yourself in front of everyone and sing Don't Stop Believing. No alcohol involved. The group that was taught, calm down, don't be afraid, scored a 53%. The group that was taught, hey, you're gonna feel some fear, that's normal, that's expected, scored at 81. A 30% boost in performance, reframing the way we talk about fear. Now let's get into the weeds and figure out what's happening. Group 1, calm down, don't be afraid were your instructions. Then we put you on the stage where you're probably gonna be afraid. How do you interpret the fear? Uh-oh, I'm not supposed to feel this. You told me to not be afraid, but now I am. So do you see, we interpret the fear as a negative thing. Something's wrong. Over here, we said, feeling fear, a little nervous before these activities is normal. Then we put them on the stage where they're probably going to be nervous. How do they interpret the fear? It's expected. It's not necessarily fun, but it's just reframing the way I think and talk about fear. A small adjustment to the way we talk about fear can have a big impact on our actions. Have you ever heard of the book Eat, Pray, Love? Or seen the movie? It's by Liz Gilbert. We talked about her earlier. She has a new book out called Big Magic, and it's nonfiction. It's about art and creativity. And in this book, she talks a lot about fear. This is a clip of Liz Gilbert reading from Big Magic.
This. Dearest Fear, Creativity and I are about to go on a road trip. I understand you'll be joining us. Because you always do. I acknowledge that you believe you have an important job to do in my life and you take your job seriously. Apparently your job is to induce complete panic in me whenever I'm about to do anything interesting. And may I say, you are superb at your job. So by all means, keep doing your job if you feel you must, but I will also be doing my job on this road trip, which is to work hard and stay focused. And creativity will be doing its job, which is to remain stimulating and inspiring. There's plenty of room in the minivan for all of us, so make yourself at home, but understand this. Creativity and I are the only ones who will be making any decisions along the way. I recognize and I respect that you're part of this family. I will never exclude you from our activities, but still, your suggestions will not be followed. You are allowed to have a seat, you're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. You don't get to touch the roadmaps, you're not allowed to suggest detours, you're not allowed to fiddle with the temperature. Dude, you're not even allowed to choose the freaking snacks. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to drive. And then we head off together, me and creativity and fear, side by side, forever, marching once more into the terrifying but marvelous terrain of unknown outcome.
I think that's a really good way to remember this. Like, the lizard is always in the car. We can't just kick it out of the car. But what we can do is make sure it sits in the back. Because when the lizard is at the wheel, it detects every jungle tiger moment as a threat, every problem, challenge, obstacle, or change. When we detect threats, we find a way to avoid them. If we're driving, we realize many of those things are opportunities. And if we frame them as opportunities, we're more likely to do them and experience them, which helps us learn, grow, and get better. Again, a small adjustment to the way we talk about fear can have a big impact on our actions. I can't say this enough. Dancing with fear is a skill. So the more that we do it, the better we get. But because it's a skill, that means we're allowed to start small. So my argument isn't go home tonight, pick the thing that freaks you out the most, do it tomorrow. No. Just like any skill, we start small, we get practice. Maybe we start small with, I feel fear, but I ask the question anyways. I feel fear, but I work on the project out of my comfort zone. As we get those reps and fire those pathways, we build that muscle of dancing with fear. The more that we do it, the better we get, but it doesn't mean the fear goes away. I added it up. I've done over 1,000 sessions like this in the last 3 years. And to be honest, I'm freaking out right now. So it doesn't even matter how many times we do it, the fear is gonna be there. You don't have to be fearless. The goal is, let's stop letting fear make our decisions when it comes to learning. Very simple goal. We don't have to be fearless. Let's just stop letting fear make our decisions when it comes to learning. No one is perfect with this. I've been obsessed with this since that conversation with Seth. And my lizard wins so many battles still. I think it's about being aware of this. And once we're aware of this, we can win a few more battles and spend a little more time in the jungle. I've talked for almost 2 hours now, but we could summarize everything in about 12 seconds. We learn best when we jungle tiger. Stories and fear are why we zoo tiger. We overcome stories with neuroplasticity, the growth mindset, understanding we can grow. Fear, we don't overcome it, but we put it in its place. As we do that, we spend a little more time in the jungle, and as we do that, we get better. Where did we leave this guy? On the couch. This is dumb. What happened next was pretty cool. We had to talk about lizards and tigers, and our brain is like a muscle. Late in 6, I didn't bust out the PowerPoint, but we had a pretty good conversation. Then I took out my laptop and pulled up a YouTube channel. It's called Learn Quick. It's by a guy named Mike Boyd. He's really funny. He has a great accent. He's from Scotland. And he tries to learn something new every few weeks, and then he posts the full video online. We picked a 6.5-minute video where Mike Boyd learned to throw a playing card into an apple from 15 feet away. Kind of a pointless skill, but it was a really cool video. It took him 5 days to learn this skill. He chopped it up into a video. Leighton watched the 6.5-minute video. He saw Mike struggling, failing, experimenting, and eventually, bang, he could nail it. As soon as the video was over, Leighton ran and got the quarter, put it back on his arm, swung his hand down, caught it. Just kidding, he didn't catch it. That's not, that's not how it works. That'd be nice. He missed again, of course, but this time he spent 4 minutes practicing, maybe 50 or 60 attempts, and after 4 minutes he was catching the quarter. Then he's doing 2 arms at once, then he's stacking quarters and catching those. It couldn't have been a bigger leap from just like 10 minutes before. What did the video do for him? I think it was a reminder. I think watching someone actually go through the learning process was a great reminder to him. In order to get good at something, we have to be bad first. We have to struggle. We have to make mistakes, and that is okay. It's not necessarily fun. Like, a lot of times we tell people, it's okay to make mistakes. I think we can upgrade that. It's like kind of necessary. You're not going to catch the quarter without a few drops. It wasn't a 2-minute hype-up video with Rocky music. It was a 6-minute video of someone actually going through the learning process. That provided the fuel. That, I think, changed his mindset. That got him back to the jungle. And in this case, the whole difference was 4 minutes. That's all he needed. Obviously, the skills we're trying to learn here take longer than 4 minutes, but the tactics remain the same. It's about being aware that we learn when we're off the couch, and it's understanding that our stories and fear are a big reason we might go to the couch. And now we have some of those tools to overcome those things. Just like dancing with fear, jungle tigering is a skill as well. Becoming a great learner is a skill. So the more time we spend in the jungle, this can snowball. We can become better learners. And that's another one of the lessons that Mike Merzenich taught me. We can get better at the skill of being a learner. We do that by spending time in the jungle. You guys have been awesome today. Thank you very much.